Hello everyone, this is Ben from VGBlaster, and today I'm back doing some Vanguard content. I know I've been away from it for a while. Buddy Fight took a bit of a priority because I was doing quite well. I am doing quite well at that competitively, but I still play Vanguard, still very much love the game. So I'm back today doing a deck profile. If you have watched previous videos on this channel, you know I have an extreme Narukami bias. It is my favourite clan. So I'm here today to bring you my Thunderstrike, my Vanquisher deck profile. It's quite similar, I suppose, to other builds I've seen around, with slight differences, so I'll try and explain that as I go through. This is working out for me the best so far in terms of consistency. I've tried other builds and they might have had a bit more pressure, but they couldn't win as consistently as this build could, especially if you want to take this to any kind of national championship, which best of one. I find this is the preferable build. That's just my opinion, that's just what I've got from testing, so without any further ado, I will go right for the deck. So starter is Hard Rod Draco Kid, of course. If you are making a Thunderstrike deck, I don't know why Hard Rod wouldn't be your starter. You'd have to have a pretty good reason. He's obviously rest it, but your opponent binds a card in the drop zone. If they can't bind the card, you count charge and give a Thunderstrike unit +3, and a second ability of Thunderstrike 4, count +1, shove it in the soul. Your opponent, then one of your units gets plus 3,000 power, then your opponent has to choose a rearguard, retire and bind it. Of course, if you meet the Thunderstrike 4 requirement, you can do both of these in the same turn, so you can rest and the bind, or you get your counter charge power, and then put it in the soul and get its second ability. So Hard Rod's really good, helps you build up advantage. In this deck I run 12 grade 2s, 7 grade 3s, so you can kind of put a bit more pressure on your opponent early by calling some grade 2s out on your second turn. Force them either to take a lot of damage, or they're going to start guarding, and then you can start using Hard Rod earlier. So yeah, really good card. Helps just generate advantage. If your opponent can't retire or do anything to Hard Rod, then he's just going to keep building advantage throughout the remainder of the game. So for grade 3s, we run 4 copies of Dragonic Vanquisher Sparking. He's your ideal ride. He is amazing. Obviously Thunderstrike 4 at the beginning of your ride phase, counter charge or soul charge 1, and then your opponent chooses a card from the drop zone and binds them. Keeps building that bind zone. The bind zone gets huge now, just because it's so easy to do. Thunderstrike 5, Thunderstrike 7, which is like your highest numbers you need to hit, is so easy to achieve. Second ability, when you stride, count +1, your opponent binds a card from the drop zone. Then if that stride unit has the Thunderstrike ability, they choose a rearguard, retire and bind it. Second grade 3 we run is the original Dragonic Vanquisher. When you stride, count +1, choose a rearguard on the front row, retire, bind it. And GB2 of when a card is retired due to an effect on either player's turn, so this can be used defensively with your G-guards. So it's not a terrible ride. It can be better against certain decks that have pokes, like Aquaforce, as long as they're not using Valios. It can be very good, just help you survive a bit more. So yep, we run just both Vanquishers on our grade 3s. I've seen people run Dragonic Descendant Sigma. I get why they run it. It's a restanding rearguard. This deck powers up the rearguards like crazy. I did try it, I did run it. I found it split the focus of the deck too much. You would dig in for your Descendant, and then yeah, it can finish your opponent, and through 5 damage it's really good. But it's costing Cat Blast, it's costing a card from your hand. It's, like I say, you kind of end up trying to search for it and trying to get this kind of play off with this one rearguard. And then if you go into VGBlaster, go for the quad drive, go for this big play, and you don't hit any crits, it's kind of easy for your opponent to get over it. Yeah, I just found it didn't work so well for me. If it works for you, that's great. Just for me, it really upset the consistency of the deck, especially if you had to ride it as well. It really slowed down the deck, and the deck isn't overly quick to begin with, comparatively to other medics. So that's just why I don't run Sigma, just for consistency, to make sure my focus is purely on just Vanquisher and building up that bind zone. So the focus is mostly on the grade 2s in terms of attacking rearguards. So to start, we'll run 4 copies of Grizzle. Grizzle is really good. When she's chosen for either an effect or an attack, regardless of if that attack hits or anything like that, your opponent instantly has to bind a card from the drop zone. Makes your opponent question if they want to target it, so often it can stay on the field, which is really good because of its second effect of Thunderstrike 5, plus 9k power during your turn, and the second ability of Counter Boss 1, when this unit attacks, it can also attack a rearguard as well, in addition to the Vanguard, so it's kind of like a mini brawler. Really good, really puts pressure on your opponent. A lot of skills in this deck give plus 3,000 power. So like the starter, for example, so once she hit Thunderstrike 5, she's 18k. Give her just 1 plus 3 and she's 21k by herself. Usually you're going to get more than that anyway, but just if you're struggling a bit, she can hit some magic numbers, which is really good. Second for grade 2s, 3 copies of Chatterer, because Chatterer is still amazing pressure early, well, just at any point in the game. Can't attack a rearguard, doesn't matter. Is 11k power during your turn. If it hits a Vanguard, +1, draw a card, you choose a card in your opponent's bind zone and drop zone and bind it. You choosing is very, very good now. It can upset a lot of things, Blasters, Overlord, Granblue, Luard, numerous other things, anything that runs G-Perfect guards, anything like that. It can really upset them. And now we know what the Xerath Dragon does. You get those Cohens out the drop zone straight away to stop the Kagero game, because we don't want to be dealing with that. So yeah, choosing can be very good. So your opponent's not going to want to let that hit. They'll guard it as much as possible. It's building up the drop zone, you know, emptying their hand for other things to finish them. Next, we run 2 copies of Plasmatron Dragon. GB1, when it's placed, your opponent binds a card from drop zone. And once per turn, Thunderstrike 4, +1, this unit gets plus 2,000 power for every card in your opponent's bind zone. So it's similar to Cloudmaster, but it's not on placement. It costs a counterblast, but if Plasmatron stays in the field, you can do it every turn. It is an act, and you will gain the power at the moment you pay the cost. So if you say pay the cost and then bind something else during that turn, it won't get additional power. So make sure you kind of do this at the end of your main phase to really optimize its power. You don't want to misplay and it losing out on a bit. So Plasmatron's really good just for some bigger plays. You do it with Voltage, it's getting 5k for every card in the bind zone. You can really pump it up. You put Smashbox behind it, which we'll go into later. Your opponent can't do anything apart from either take it or guard it. So yeah, Plasmatron's quite good. Next one, 3 copies of Martial Arts Dragon. Now, I've seen a lot of people drop Martial Arts Dragon from the deck since the new support. I originally did that as well, and I found it suffered. This deck can suffer to the rush. You need to keep your hand, you need to make sure you consistently call in field, being able to guard, being able to keep yourself in the game, especially against a lot of stuff in the meta now. So this kind of, if your opponent sees it, say if you drive check it, your opponent knows you have it, they might not rush you, they might not want to risk losing those rear guards early, so they might hold on to them, which makes it easy for you. You're keeping your hand up, you're keeping your damage low, and then if they do go for the rush, you call this, you kill something, you build in the bind zone up. It makes your opponent question like, oh, should I stay at grade 2 now? You know, you've killed a rear guard. You'll starting to gain advantage, so your opponent will probably go into grade 3 just to build up their hand a bit. So I still like Martial Arts Dragon. I found the deck worked a lot better when I put it back in. I realised at 3, I realised some people might want to knock that down, maybe put Plasmatron up a bit more, maybe put Chatterer at 4. I find if you're not running him at 3, there's not much point in running him at all, because you really want to be riding him at grade 2. 4's too much, because he's not as good as the other grade 2s, but 3 is kind of a good number. I tend to see him quite regularly when I need him, so I find that works out. So that'll do for grade, that'll do for grade 2s. Next for grade 1s, we run 4 copies of the new Anastasia. You counter charge quite a bit in this deck. Obviously, your ideal ride is Sparking, he's giving you a counter charge every turn. The next grade 1 we'll go into Smashboxer, gives you a counter charge. Your Heal Trigger can give you a counter charge. You don't necessarily use a lot of it. None of your strides really use counter charge. There's like 2 strides that use counter charge. And then it's just your on stride and your grade 2 abilities. So, and you can kind of manage them quite easily. So yeah. Anastasia is really good. She can guard any unit as a perfect guard, not just the Vanguard. And then Thunderstrike 4, when she retires from Guardian Circle, draw a card. So that's when she retires. Don't forget, I've seen people place it and then draw a card. You can't do that. This kind of makes the card fair, I suppose, because you can't just place it down, draw a card, then guard with that. But it's quite good when you place her at the end of the battle, you draw your card, it's another Anastasia. That's quite funny, or a Heal Trigger or something like that, just to help you guard easier for the rest of this turn, and then keep your hand up as well. So next, grade 1s, we run 4 copies of Smashboxer Dragon, my apologies. GB1, when this unit boosts a unit with a Thunderstrike ability, both this unit and that unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's cards. So when it boosts, you can't be denied Griffin, you can't be dominated, you can't be, your opponent can't do anything to that column. They have to either take the attack or guard it. Like I said, in combination with like Plasmatron or on your voltage turn when you rearguard the swing for big. Chatala is the only grade 2 that doesn't have Thunderstrike. And 2 of your main grade 1s have it. You know, you can kind of push for big columns. You can call 2 of these in a column, anything like that. Really good to make sure that column is going to either hit its mark or force your opponent to drop a lot of cards to guard it. And its second effect of Thunderstrike 3, I believe, yeah, GB1 Thunderstrike 3. After this unit boosts an attack, you may put this unit into the soul, countercharge 1 and draw a card. So that's good. It can be quite useful if your hand's quite low, if you know your opponent's going to go for a big play next turn. If they've, you know, still managed to get a decent hand, they've just sucked up a load of damage, they're going to go for a big play. He makes that, he'll run away from cards like Link Joker, you know, anything that kind of will stun or lock you or dominate you or anything like that. He'll run away from that, giving your opponent less targets. So yeah, he can be, not only is the counter charge and the draw useful, it can also get you out of tough situations. Next we run 2 copies of Dragon Dancer Fatine. We're keeping that draw engine going. As I said, this deck needs the hand, it needs the field to make the bigger plays to finish your opponent. So Fatine is Thunderstrike 2, no GB. When it's placed, Soul Boss 1, draw a card. Nothing overly fancy, just once again, just for the draw power. And finally for grade 1s, we run 4 copies of Mighty Bolt Dragoon. We only run, obviously, 7 grade 3s, and we want to be striding as consistently as possible. We also want to be searching out the right Vanquisher for the right situation. So if you feel like you're going to need, so ideally you're going to go Sparking to build your Thunderstrike engine up, or if you feel like you're going to need some defensive plays during this game, search out the original Vanquisher. So this is the grade 1 lineup I find works the best. And finally we will move on to triggers. We will run for 8 crit. I find it crit. Originally I went 12 because I thought, oh, this deck has quite a bit of draw power. Even though it does, you have like 3 or 4 cards that can draw, like your Perfect Guard, Smashboxer, Fatine, Chatara. It doesn't happen as much as you think it's going to happen. Like obviously a lot of people tend to guard Chatara. Sometimes you don't want to use Smashboxer's skill, keep it on the field. And you only run 2 Fatine, so you don't draw into it as much as you'd like, obviously. So I knocked 12 crit down because I find when I did it, yeah, you can crit sack your opponent every now and then. It's like triple crit, double crit for game. But more often than not, if they survive that, or if they, you know, they guard quite well, you'll find you're at quite a disadvantage in terms of lack of hand, lack of field, anything like that. So for that reason, I run 4 draw. I will also see people run stand. I don't like running the stand. I did run it, and I found once again, you tend to like, alright, I've got this stand in my hand, how am I going to use it? You think about other things instead of like, how am I going to effectively kill my opponent? You're thinking, oh, how can I use this card? Well, it might even be like useful, like the draw or whatever, and then you might not hit the stand on the drive check. So I find you can often lose a bit of power. So voltage is still your main stride because of how much you build up the bind zone. So say you swung for rear guard first, yeah, it's going to be quite powerful with voltage. Then voltage attacks, and they just take that. Then obviously front row's gaining more power, and then you hit some good triggers, and you have to put it all on one rear guard. You don't hit the stand or anything like that. And voltage hit, you're going to bind more, they're going to get more powerful, and that unit's now rested. I don't know, it kind of, I don't know, it didn't feel right. Kind of, you shift your focus, you're hoping for that stand trigger, and you only run 4. So I found just draws work as defensively when you take them as damage, builds your hand up when you're attacking. Just, once again, it helped keep you in the game. And finally, 4 heal triggers, specifically this heal trigger, to get the count charge if you really need it. Feels like this, also, sorry, I mentioned in terms of crits, use these 2. Obviously you want to use your Heartfront Clone, but Malevolent Djinn, or they recently released a Eradicator one that has the exact same effect of just, it's the same as like Margle, you just shoot into the soul, give something +3. Just because a few things use soul, VGBlaster use soul, Fatine, martial arts, and some other stuff, obviously the heal trigger, sorry, just helps. So if you've used your soul a bit early and you want to go into VGBlaster, you can stride it, call this, put it in, and then you can use VGBlaster's skill. Just helps make sure you are getting those skills off, basically. So yeah, that's it for the main deck. Now we will go on to strides. So first, we obviously will be running 4 copies of VGBlaster, the brand new Vanquisher, on stride, so +1, flip a copy face up. Your opponent chooses a card from drop zone and one of their rear guards, binds them, and then if you have more rear guards than your opponent, choose 3 units, they gain 3k. And GB3, Thunderstrike 7, all units on your front row gain 5000 power, and this unit gets +1 crit and +1 drive. So everyone's getting a quad drive. This is Narukami's. It is quite obviously very limited to Thunderstrike. Hitting Thunderstrike 7 in any other deck is a mountain to climb, and you probably won't. And there's not much point because then you're trying to focus on binding, and you might as well just play Vanquisher, honestly. So yeah, VGBlaster is very good, but do not put all your eggs in the V basket, because the quad drive isn't as good as a big voltage play. It is tempting to go into VGBlaster on your second stride, just because you want that quad drive. What if I hit 4 crits? Oh, that'd be so good. You're not going to hit 4 crits, especially not in this build because it's not a 12 crit deck. But it doesn't put as much pressure on your opponent. It's like when people are starting to notice against blasters, when they ride Ganslight, it's like, oh, this is an easy turn. Perfect guard, the Vanguard, see where the triggers go and work around that. Whereas like, oh god, this Vanguard swinging for 50, oh god, this rear guard swinging for 60, oh, there's another rear guard swinging for 70. It's like, that is more to deal with than a quad drive, especially when you might not even hit triggers. So VGBlaster is the ideal first stride. If you haven't G-guarded anything like that, you haven't built up a strong enough bind zone, your opponent has quite a decent field, VGBlaster, yes, is the ideal first stride. But when you go for your next one, really consider it, because that's why I was doing it first. It was like, oh yes, VGBlaster, new shiny card, quad drive, yay, we've never had quad drive before in this deck. Oh, I'm not killing my opponent as quickly, oh, I've lost. And then my opponent says, wow, that you didn't really do anything then. You got a quad drive, but you know. So yeah, don't assume VGBlaster is all that. This card, however, Voltage, is even better now. Like I said, stride Voltage when you can. Now, this deck builds up the bind zone so quickly. It gets to such a high number by turn 1, turn 2, that Voltage is even better than he was before. If you don't know skill, flip a copy face up. This unit gains the ability of when it hits, choose your opponent chooses a card, one of their rear guards retires it, then you choose two cards from their drop zone and bind to them. Once again, choosing is very good. With secondary effect, GB3, all your units on the front row gain 3000 power for every card in your opponent's bind zone. So you can call triggers and have them pumping up to like plus 30k quite easily in this build. It really is a hard card to stop quite consistently. So I see Voltage is still the best stride in the deck, in my personal opinion, just because of what it can do. Once you've done VGBlaster first turn, unless you have like 0 field, like you've been locked down or something in your low on hand, then Voltage is always the stride to go into. It really is, in my opinion. So next, our final Vanquisher will be Dragonic Vanquisher VMAX. VMAX is incredibly situational, but in that situation you will most likely win unless they sack a heal. But in so many occasions you're getting Shadow Paladins doing 5 damage, they've got goddamn like 4 Ezra's in hand because that card's stupid, but they've got no field because they killed it on their turn. You just swing, take your damage. If you know what it does, GB3, Thunderstrike 5, which is no longer hard to hit at all. At the end of the battle, this unit attack the Vanguard, Cardfight 2, deal 1 damage to your opponent, regardless of what damage they're at. If they're at 5, they'll take the 6th. Hopefully they don't heal. Really hope they don't heal. But yeah, and the second ability of when this unit attacks, it will attack for every face-up copy of Vanquisher in your G-Zone, it can attack an additional rear guard. So now you have even more Vanquishers in your G-Zone. You know, if you go into this third, you can hit 4 units in the Vanguard. 4 rear guards in the Vanguard. Or even more, you can board wipe pretty easily. I mean, this card can even be good if you just, even if that damage isn't gonna finish off your opponent. If your opponent's built up a strong field and it's just stuff you don't want to deal with, just board wipe them. Basically. So VMAX can be good in very, like I said, in quite a few situations. I think one's enough copies of him. I don't feel like 2 would be too much now, I believe. Next, 1 copy of Vulture Zapper, his name is really stupid. Vulture Zapper Dragon. Cat 1, Thunderstrike. Is it Thunderstrike 3? Yeah, Thunderstrike 3. Cat 1. This unit gains plus 10,000 power. sorry, that's not counterblast. Sorry, Thunderstrike 3, it gains 10,000 power for this turn. Then after it attacks, then you can counterblast 1, and your opponent chooses a card for every 2 cards in their bind zone and retires and binds them. So this card is just for certain situations when you don't want to waste a Vanquisher. If your entire field is locked, for example, you have no rear guards, your opponent has quite a decent field, you just want to kill a few of their things because you can't do much else. You first stride, your opponent's for some reason got no field and no drop zone. You know, it's very rare, but it can happen. You can just go into this so you don't waste one of your Vanquisher strides. Yeah, it's just certain little situations like that that Zapper Charge can be useful in. And also because he's got Thunderstrike, you'll gain Sparking's full effect. So if you do stride him first, you will get all of the effects off, or if you stride him because you field's locked or stunned or anything like that. Yeah, Zapper Charge is good. And finally, well not finally, we've got one more after this, but I mean in terms of main. Now commons, this is Close the Dragon, the GB8, one of the best GB8s in the game in my opinion. GB8 when it's placed, everyone loses all their rear guards, bind your opponent's drop zone, or your units gain plus 2k. For the remainder of the turn. This gets mad. You can have, like I've had draw triggers like pushing 60, 70k. Really good, as his name suggests, he's for closing the game. So this deck doesn't seem to go into him as much. You tend to kill your opponent much quicker than hitting GB8. So in my old build it was more focused on him because I ran like 2 MP dragons, so I was flipping through my G guards quicker. You know, I just go into whatever first to keep flipping stuff. This build I find you don't need as much. It's just if the game gets drawn out, you're against a deck that can consistently guard, you know, can kind of counter your big plays, or if they've just been healing quite a bit, they've got a bit lucky. This just helps you, obviously, close out the game. Finally, one copy of Seabreeze, because people still play the Grade 2 game. As I've said, this is still why I would play Martial Arts Dragon. A lot of people don't want to let your opponent stride first. They want to stride first. Especially now Xerath Dragons are coming out and people are going to want to be hitting that GB3 as soon as possible to go into the Xerath Dragon, maybe on stride 2, to just kill your opponent, because they are strong. They can be countered, but they are very, very strong. So Seabreeze, make sure that you are striding first and you're getting certain plays off. So even with Seabreeze, you can go Seabreeze and then G-Guard with your G-Flipper, then you're at GB3. You know, I think at that point it's too early to go into the Xerath Dragon unless you've put your opponent at 5 or even 4 maybe, and depending on what they have in the hand. Yeah, Seabreeze is just there to make sure that you're gaining the advantage, you're keeping in control of the game instead of letting your opponent control it. So onto G-Guards, we run one copy of Impede Dragon, GB1, when it's placed, flip a card face up. Your opponent immediately has to retire and bind a card, and when this unit was placed, if they had 2 or more rear guards than you, it's not after the first retire, it's when this unit is placed. If you read the wording, and I've asked to judge on this, it's kind of a run-on effect. So it doesn't say your opponent chooses a card, retires and binds it, and then if they have 2 or more, it just says, it's just comma, if they have 2 or more rear guards. So it's the whole effect at once. So when it's placed, if you have 2, they have 4, they have to retire and bind a card, and then retire another rear guard. So he's really, really good for the G-Flip. Really shuts down your opponent in terms of plays. Your opponent will fear this card. I've seen Shadow Paladin players stride into Aura Geyser. They only have 2 rear guards and they think, oh, he might have a heal trigger in hand. Even if they haven't confirmed it, they'll be scared of it. So they'll just swing in for Aura Geyser and kill those 2 cards without going for that first attack. So it's not putting as much pressure on you, just out of the fear of this card. So it's really good. And in terms of if they do attack and they forget about Impede, then you shut down their turn. Yeah, it can be good for that as well. Next we run one copy of Vitra. Originally I didn't run this, I took it out and I think I put like 3 Bulwark in instead. But I found if my opponent did stride first and they hit a few triggers and they powered up their final rearguard, that 26 wasn't enough. They would be swinging for like 26, 28. And I'd be like, I'm 5k short with this G-Guard, I need to either drop something else or I have to take this attack, and then I'm at higher damage than I want to be this early in the game. So yeah, I just found, and obviously you bind earlier, so you've usually got a bound card even by the time they stride. So yeah, I think Vitra's still very good. The deck was really upset without him. And you're going to use Impede Dragon. You're going to use him. So just, if you don't use Vitra as your first G-Guard, just flip him. Because you need a dead G-Guard anyway to be flipped. So it doesn't hinder the deck at all. Finally for G-Guards, we run 2 copies of Bulwark Dragon. Thunderstrike 3, he gets 10k shield, he's 36k shield, and second ability of at the end of the battle that this unit guarded, choose a rested rearguard on the front row for every 4 cards in your opponent's bind zone and retire them. Annoyingly, this is at the end of battle. I think it would be a bit broken if it wasn't, but obviously because your opponent will get turn priority, so if they have anything like the Flogel that restands the blaster, they'll get priority to stand the blaster, and then you can't kill it. I think that's how it works. I don't think it'll kind of like, you can kind of queue it up, if you know what I mean. So it can be quite annoying, but once again, you get retires off. Annoyingly, it doesn't bind either, but it's mostly there for the 36k shield. The second effect is just kind of useful in certain situations if they have quite a big board. It helps you just dwindle your opponent's numbers down as well. So yes, so that'll be it for the build. In terms of when the Zereth Dragon comes out, I'll probably replace Zapper Charge, maybe. I'll look into different plays, if you're wondering, because it can be good in this deck. It's quite a good card. If you know what it does, I only got announced today actually when I'm filming this video. I think it's on placement, counterblast 2. We don't know its full effect yet, but it's counterblast 2. We don't know if you have to drop a card or anything like that. Retire and bind all of your opponent's rearguards and Vanguard, and then your opponent chooses 3 cards from their hand, discards 2, and rides 1 as their new Vanguard. It has to be played at the right time. A lot of people going, oh my god, it's broken. But it's only really good when your opponent's at a low hand, or you know your opponent doesn't have a grade 3 in hand. Obviously they are losing 2, well, they're losing 3 cards from hand. But there is a lot of decks can build up a decent hand now. If they know they're playing a Dragon Empire deck, they can kind of play around it. So anyway, I'll probably go into a further discussion about Zereth Dragons at a later date. But for now, this has been my current Thunderstrike build. This is, as I said, it's what's working for me the most consistently. If you have any changes or want to ask any further questions that I didn't explain in this video, don't be afraid to ask down in the comments. I will always try and answer as much as I can in as best detail as possible. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm going to do a Blademaster deck profile next, I think, which is a little bit behind because that support's very old. This support is a little old now. But my Blademaster deck's a little different, so that'll be coming up next, and I'll try and get some games filmed to show these decks in action. So yeah, look forward to that. Subscribe and comment and like on all that YouTube stuff if you have not already. I have been Ben from VGBlaster, and it has been a pleasure to bring you this today. See you guys later. Bye.